So if you want to still do a run through.
Sure. Good afternoon, fellow Toastmasters and special guests. This winter sure has been a long one. People talk about cabin fever. Cabin fever is actually the worst this time of year. In December, January, and February, you expect it to be cold and snowy. But come March, you start thinking about spring and the tantalizing tulips, the delightful daffodils, and the incredible crocus. Even if you're not a gardener like me, you start thinking about green grass. Mother Nature may even tease you with a sunny day above 50 degrees, then bam! More cold and rain or even snow. Now you're talking about cabin fever. This time of year sure can be difficult, especially for those who struggle with depression. Well, I have a hobby that will have you looking forward to this time of year rather than dreading it. It's a hobby that will cure even the worst case of cabin fever. Backyard sugaring. So what is backyard sugaring? Backyard sugaring is collecting and boiling of maple sap to obtain mouth-watering maple syrup. The Native Americans taught the early settlers how to boil sap down to maple sugar. They made maple sugar because it was easier to store than liquid syrup. Although there have been many technological improvements since that time, backyard sugaring is still performed relatively the same way that the settlers used to do it. Today I'd like to share with you the 6 steps to backyard sugaring. The first step is selecting the trees. Although you can theoretically tap any maple tree, the sugar maple tree or hard maple has the highest percentage of sugar in the sap, and the maple syrup from this tree has the best flavor. In our area, sap flows when the nighttime temperatures are below freezing and the daytime temperatures are above freezing. This is typically mid-March. Also keep in mind that it takes 40 gallons of sap to produce 1 gallon of syrup. Also, the trees must be at least 10 inches in diameter for 1 tap, 18 inches for 2 taps, and 26 inches in diameter for 3 taps. I wouldn't go more than 3 taps. The second step to backyard sugaring is tapping the trees. You want to drill a hole in the base of the tree slightly larger than your tap. I would go about 2.5 inches into the tree, including the heavy bark. And then gently pound your tap into the tree until snug. You can either hang your collection container directly on the tap, or you can run plastic tubing from the tap to your collection container, as we have done. The third step to backyard sugaring is collecting the sap. On a daily basis, pour the sap from your collection containers to your sap storage container. Sap storage container can be as simple as a Rubbermaid tote with a lid. You can even use a large, clean garbage can. It's important to store your sap in a cool place because it can spoil. The fourth step to backyard sugaring is boiling the sap. Boiling the sap takes a long time because you must boil off 39 gallons of water to obtain 1 gallon of syrup. You can expect to spend an entire Saturday at it. Early in the morning, get a fire started in your outdoor fire pit. An outdoor fire pit can be as simple as cement blocks stacked up on top of each other. You can pour your sap into your pan and stir occasionally. As the water is boiled off, add more sap. By the end of the day, you will be left with mostly syrup. At that point, you want to have your candy thermometer handy. At our elevation, maple syrup boils at 218 degrees Fahrenheit. Once your syrup reaches 218 degrees, you know that all the water has been boiled off. At this point, you will want to strain the boiling sap. For a strainer, we normally use a wire strainer with a couple layers of cloth. Once it is filtered, you can move on to the 5th step, canning the syrup. As I said, once it's filtered, you can can your syrup. Pour the hot syrup into clean, sterile canning jars and seal. If you don't have canning jars, you can use any container with a lid. You can even use coffee cans. If you don't seal the containers, I suggest putting them in the freezer. Syrup doesn't freeze, and this will keep your syrup fresh longer. The 6th step to backyard sugaring is enjoying your syrup. Doesn't that look good? So is making your own maple syrup cheaper than buying it in the store? Not really when you add up all your equipment costs, but the taste is priceless. My brother from California calls it gourmet syrup, and he looks forward to it every time I send it to him. Let's recap the steps to backyard sugaring. Step 1, select the trees. Step 2, tap the trees. Collect the sap, boil the sap, can the syrup, enjoy the syrup. Backyard sugaring is a hobby that you can look forward to at the end of a long winter. It is a reason to get outside and put an end to cabin fever. And it's something the whole family can participate in. And the maple syrup can be enjoyed all year long.
Cut.
Cut.